Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul al-Kareem. Wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we are at now, as it stands, the 27th of Dhul Qa'dah. Okay, we're at the 27th of Dhul Qa'dah. This means it is 2 days before we need to look for the moon for Dhul Hijjah. This will tell us then on the 29th, on the 29th, so the 27th is Friday. The 27th was this Friday. So we've now gone into the 28th. Now, this leaves us to the 29th. We will then know on the 29th, when we go to sight the moon, we will know for a fact when Eid is going to be in Dhul Hijjah, once we sight the moon. So we've now finished praying Salat al-Maghrib. We've reached the 28th of Dhul Qa'dah. So now is the time for preparation. The virtues of fasting, the day of Arafah, have already been mentioned. Some fuqaha have mentioned fasting the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah and the benefits therein. But we have to make sure to prepare ourselves for the month of Dhul Hijjah that is coming, because this is the month of the Hajj, and if we should see the moon on late Sunday, then this will tell us that if we should see it, then the month of Dhul Qa'dah is 29 days, and that will mean that 9 days or 10 days from that time, the Eid will come. If it's 30 days, then it means we need to count another day of Dhul Qa'dah, and 10 days after that is going to come Eid al-Adha. So let us use our time wisely to prepare. Some will be able to fast all 9 days, from the 1st of Dhul Hijjah to the 9th. Some will only be able to do the day of Arafah. Whichever position someone is using, let's make sure that we get the maximum barakah out of our time, because these blessed fasts only come once a year, and we do not know when it is time for ourselves to make our journey home. We don't know whether we'll be the first one to have to go home, the last one, we don't know. So if you can fast, if you can make the intention to fast, it is of the best and highest opportunity for you to do that fast if you can. Now in ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir by Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, we had finished the Tafsir up till ayat 5, but I had recited beyond that point. But I'll recite the page again, inshallah, and we'll start from the Imam's commentary from ayat 6 onward. So we'll start with the last part of the Imam's commentary on ayat 5. He says, quote, "When Allah said, the believers shall rejoice in the help of Allah," meaning for what the Byzantine Romans received. The meeting of the two groups occurred in the 7th year of the Hijrah, and this was after the Persians had already been victorious over them. But then the Byzantine Romans came back and conquered. The angel Jibreel alayhi salam came with news of the victory of the Byzantine Romans over the Persians. And another added benefit that came that agrees with these events afterward was the Battle of Badr, because the believers also rejoiced on that day in the help of Allah, as well as after the events of the day of Al-Hudaybiyah. Allah the Exalted then says after this, وَعْدَ اللَّهِ لَا يُخْلِفُ اللَّهُ وَعْدَهُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ أولم يتفكروا في أنفسهم ما خلق الله السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى وإن كثيرا من الناس بلقاء ربهم لكافرون أولم يسيروا في الأرض فينظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم كانوا أشد منهم قوة وأثاروا الأرض وعمروها أكثر مما عمروها وجاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات فما كان الله ليظلمهم ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون ثم كان عاقبة الذين أساءوا السوء أن كذبوا بآيات الله وكانوا بها يستهزئون الله يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده ثم إليه ترجعون ويوم تقوم الساعة يبلس المجرمون ولم يكن لهم من شركائهم شفعاء وكانوا بشركائهم كافرين ويوم تقوم الساعة يومئذ يتفرقون فأما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فهم في روضة يحبرون. The promise of Allah. Indeed, He, Allah, does not break His promise, but most people do not know. They only know the outward of the earthly life, and regarding the hereafter, they are heedless. Don't they reflect in themselves? Allah did not create the skies and the earth and what's between them except in truth and for a defined period of time. Many of the people reject faith in the meeting with their Lord. Don't they travel through the earth and look? How was the end of those who came before them? Those that came before them were greater than them in power and left behind large remains in the earth. That which they maintained was more than that which these people currently maintain. There came to them our messengers with clear signs. Allah did not oppress them, but they oppressed themselves. Then this was the ultimate end of those who brought sin upon themselves. They denied our signs, and they mocked them as well. Allah begins the creation, and then He brings an end to it, and to Him shall be your return. The day in which the hour shall be established, the criminals shall be blinded in their sin. Their helpers shall not be of any help to them, nor will their intercession avail anything. They will be rejecting faith in the fact that they had been taken as partners by those people. On the day in which the hour is established, that day they shall be broken into different groups and parties. As for those who believe and do righteous deeds, then they shall be in pavilions maintained. Surah Ar-Rum, the 30th Surah, ayat 6 to 15. The Exalted One, when He says the promise of Allah, the promise which Allah made that He shall not break is that the Byzantine Romans shall surely be victorious over the Persians. But most people, meaning the people of Mecca in particular, the unbelievers, do not know, meaning they don't know that Allah doesn't break His promise in that. And He described the unbelievers of Mecca when He said, they only know the outward of the earthly life. Ikrimah said, meaning that which they work with, their wages and their wealth that they make. Ad-Dahhak said, They know the buildings and the castles and the rivers and the things of the past. Al-Hasan al-Basri said, they know when their harvests are and when to reap them. But that is all they have. But by Allah, from the knowledge of any one of them of their earthly life, He knows everything about the wealth, where it's going, its weight, but He knows nothing else. Of the hereafter, they are heedless because they don't believe in it. As Zajjaj has said, so it's clear that Allah is emphasizing they do not know about the earthly life. They do not know about the hereafter because they only spend their time in the earthly life. Don't they reflect in themselves? As Zajjaj has said, meaning, don't they reflect? Then they come to know and think about matters. The creation has only been made in truth, meaning to establish the truth, and for a defined time period. And many of the people reject faith in the meeting with their Lord. Further than this, it's also understood that the defined time period being referred to as the defined time period for the skies and the earth, they both have a specific time period. And the time period where they end is the day of resurrection. Many people, meaning the unbelievers of Mecca, reject faith in the resurrection. They deny it. Haven't they traveled through the earth? Meaning, haven't they ever traveled and looked at the remains of the previous nations before them, how they were destroyed because they denied the truth? Don't they reflect on this? Don't they look at the remains of what was left over? What was left in the earth? The pasture lands? That which the people maintained before was greater than what the Meccans maintained, because the nations before the Meccans were around for far longer. Our messengers came to them with clear signs. Allah did not oppress them, but they oppressed themselves, because they rejected faith and they denied the signs. This is a clear evidence that because these nations didn't exist, because these nations did not believe, they were destroyed. Then the people were informed regarding their end. And that was the end of those who committed sins. The punishment came to them, and their ultimate end is the great fire. Close quote. Now, just a very quick point about this. So Allah says that the nations of before, their power and their athar, which are their legacy or the remains or the ruins or also the relics they left behind, was greater than that which you have. So Mecca in its current form, the city as it's been standing for 4,000 years because Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam in his time had to be rebuilt and reworked. Civilizations before that time, you look at Egypt, 5,000 years. Some say 28 dynasties. Some say more. Sumeria, which predates that, ancient, extremely old. Some say 9,000, some say longer. All of these civilizations predated Mecca. You find old wreckage, old buildings, old structures. So when Allah is saying they were greater than you in power, greater than them in power, and they left behind larger relics, one of the best examples is the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's a huge relic that was left behind of the past. You could fit the Statue of Liberty, Westminster Abbey, and still have room to fit other structures inside of it. A structure so large all the locomotives on Earth couldn't pull it. A massive structure. And there's still ongoing debate over what those three pyramids, because they match up with the Orion constellation, they're laid out and they fit perfectly. Now, what exactly were they used for? How exactly were they used? We haven't been given clear directions on what they meant or what they were used for. All we can do is sit back and marvel at the sheer size of these structures, which can be seen from space. When we look at the Great Wall of China, which took several dynasties to complete, all we can do is sit back and marvel at the leftovers and examine it, because that's not even all of the Great Wall, because some of it was demolished over time. What's left that we see now is still huge. It's still huge. All we can do is just reflect on what's there. Now, some of the ancient relics of the past are no longer here, such as the Colossus of Rhodes. It was believed that there was a large bronze statue that straddled the two ancient islands of Rhodes that was several stories tall. They'd collected as much bronze as they could to make this massive statue, the Colossus of Rhodes. Now, at some point in history, it was melted down. We don't know how, we don't know who. There's all different types of historical arguments. If you have the opportunity, you can look up the history of the Colossus of Rhodes. This is one of the ancient relics of the past. It was there. All of the historians that were around in the time period in which it was extant all mention its enormous size. But no one is quite sure with a beyond doubt level of certainty what happened to it. Further to this, we can also look at the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were these massive gardens that were made thousands of years ago. We are not exactly sure what fully happened to these. There's not a definite agreement on what happened. We then have the Dam of Ma'arib, which is near Yemen, which was supposed to be a gigantic dam that held back the waters that burst at one point and flooded one of the plains. But when the dam was up, it was one of the largest structures of its time period. Then we have the largest step pyramid in the world, which is located in Central America. Now, we don't know. This is bigger than the one in Giza. It's a step pyramid. We have thousands of step pyramids that were built by the Inca, the Toltec, the Quechua, all these other nations that have left behind. The statues at Easter Island, the Stonehenge monument, and countless other structures. Now, some of these we still can't make a definite determination on what exactly happened to why they're in ruins now. In terms of, was it as the nation was destroyed? Was it after it? Was it before? But one thing we can say is the nations before the people that we have now were greater than the nations today. If you look at the sheer volume of gold that was stolen when Tutankhamun's tomb was unearthed, it's absolutely amazing. This shows the wealth that these people had, the power that they had. So you have to understand that the nations before our time were greater than us in power and in amount. Now, the Imam goes on to say, quote, and the Exalted One says further that their messengers came to them with signs and evidences. Allah did not oppress them, but they oppressed themselves. And they denied the truth that came to them up until the time that they died on that falsehood. Because He, Allah, destroyed them, placed a seal upon their hearts until they died, denying the truth. And this was a punishment for them. Further to this, Allah says He begins the creation, meaning He created them the first time. Then after death, He shall bring them back to life a second time. And they shall all return to Him. Now, according to Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Ibn Amr, Hamza, Al-Kasai, and Hafs and Asim, it is recited as Turja'un. However, Abu Bakr ibn Asim, recited as Yurja'un. Now, the return that they are going to have is the return in which those who will have their deeds rewarded. And the creation, al-khalq, has the meaning of all creations. Then the Exalted One says, on the day in which the hour shall be established, they shall be blinded. We've discussed this in Surah Al-An'am, the 6th Surah, Ayah 44. Their partners, meaning their idols which they worshipped, shall not be able to make intercession for them on the day of resurrection. In fact, that which they worship shall deny them. On the day in which they shall be broken up into different parties, meaning after the reckoning, there will be some that go to the paradise and some that go to the fire. But those who believe and do righteous deeds shall be in the meadows of goodness, meaning a beautiful place that is shaded and overgrown in the earth, because it is one of the most noble things. The scholars of commentary say the Rawda here, the word Rawda means meadow or section of a meadow. And the plural of it is Riyad. So the meadows of the paradise, they shall be maintained therein. And there are 4 things that are said about the meadows of the paradise. One is that the people shall be honored therein, not just in the meadows, but receiving great honor, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. The second is that those in these meadows shall be given greater favors by Allah. It's said by Az-Zajjaj. Thirdly, they will be praising Allah and rejoicing. And that fourthly, they will hear good things in the paradise. Now it was asked to Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, one of the meanings of this ayah, and he said, when the people of the paradise come to listen, Yahya ibn Mu'adh said, they are listening to good things. There are no bad things. They will all hear good things. Praise of Allah and praise of His Majesty. It is for this reason that we hear the ayah, Fi maq'adi sidqin 'inda malikin muqtadir, in the presence, the noble presence of the Almighty King. Surah Al-Qamar, the 54th Surah, Ayah 55. As for the others, Allah says they shall be in the great punishment, present and gathered around. There shall be no lightening for them from the punishment. Then he mentions the fact that the people of the paradise shall be far from the people of the fire. And he says, after this, glorified is Allah. And he gives us the ayah. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَلِقَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ فَأُولَئِكَ فِي الْعَذَابِ مُحْضَرُونَ فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ حِينَ تُمْسُونَ وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَيُحْيِي الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا وَكَذَلِكَ تُخْرَجُونَ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَكُم مِّن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ تَنْتَشِرُونَ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنْفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالِمِينَ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ مَنَامُكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ وَابْتِغَاؤُكُمْ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ يُرِيكُمُ الْبَرْقُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَيُحْيِي بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. As for those who reject faith and deny our signs and the meeting in the hereafter, they shall be in the punishment present. Glorified is Allah when you are in the evening and when you are in the day, at the daybreak. He has the praise in the skies and the earth, and in the evening and when you are in the heat of the day. He draws the living from the dead, and He draws the dead from the living. He gives life to the earth after its death, and likewise you shall be brought forward. From His signs is that He created you from the dust. Then when you were a human being, you were spread out on the land. From His signs is that He created for you from yourselves spouses, so that you might live with them, and He made between you love and mercy. In that are signs for those who reflect. From His signs is the creation of the skies and the earth, and the differing of your languages, as well as your complexions. Indeed, in that are signs for those who know. From His signs is the nighttime, when you are sleeping, and the daytime, when you are seeking His bounty by seeking wealth. In that are signs for people who listen, for people who hear. And from His signs is He shows you the great lightning, which brings fear and longing. He sends down from the sky water, and He enlivens with it a land that had been dead and barren. In that are signs for a people who use their intellect. Surah Ar-Rum, the 30th surah, ayat 16 to 24. The Exalted One, when He mentions the hour being established and the end of all things, He also mentions, glorified is Allah when in the evening. Meaning, pray to Allah when it is the evening time. Because the expression tumsun is coming from the same place where the word masa, evening time, comes from. وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ, and in the day, meaning when you enter the morning. وَتُظْهِرُونَ, and in the heat of the day, which is the zawal and what comes after. وَعَشِيَّ, and in the night. So to glorify Him in the night. One can see in this ayah here that all 5 prayers have been mentioned at once. Let us look at it. Hina tumsun, when the evening should come upon you. This is referring to Salat al-Maghrib and Salat al-Isha. Wahina tusbihun, and when the daybreak comes upon you. This is Salatul Fajr. وعشية, the afternoon, this is the time of Al-Asr. وحين تظهرون, and in the heat of the day, this is referring to the prayer of Al-Dhuhr. He possesses the praise in the skies and the earth. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, the people of the skies and the earth praise him and they pray to him, and he brings forth the living from the dead. Now we've already discussed this previously in Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd Surah 27, so one can refer back to that. But when it says that he enlivens the earth after it was dead and barren, meaning that he causes it to germinate, and vegetation comes forth after it had not had any vegetation. That is its life. And likewise, you shall be brought out. وَكَذَلِكَ تُخْرَجُونَ. Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Asim, Abu Amr, and Ibn Amr recite this as وَكَذَلِكَ تُخْرَجُونَ. However, Hamza and Al-Kasai recited as وَكَذَلِكَ تَخْرُجُونَ. Now the intent here is, and likewise you shall be brought out, meaning you shall be brought out for the day of resurrection from the earth. Meaning just as he enlivened the earth after it had been dead by bringing forth vegetation, you shall be brought forth for the day of resurrection from your graves. And from his signs, meaning the signs of his might, is he created you from the dirt. Meaning Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam, because he is the origin of mankind. Then when you became man, you were spread out, meaning of flesh and blood as his descendants. You were spread out in the earth. And he created for you from yourselves spouses. So Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam had a spouse, and it was said by Qatada that Hawa was created as a spouse for Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam, and he said from his dila', from his rib or side. The second understanding is that the meaning is he made for you Adamic spouses for you, and he didn't make for you spouses from other than your species. And this is mentioned by Al-Kalbi. Close quote. Now here's something important. The vast majority, the overwhelming preponderance of scholars understand that Nabiyuna Adam and Hawa alayhim as-salam were made simultaneously. This is primarily arrived at through Surah An-Nisa, the 4th surah, the first several ayat, the last page of Surah Al-Araf, the 7th surah, as well as countless ahadith such as, indeed, women are the twin halves of man. Women are the twin halves of men. This hadith in Imam Suyuti's collection. This is the understanding of the vast majority. Now there is a minority opinion, such as Qatada and others, to say that Hawa alayha salam was created from the rib, dila', of Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam. Now dila' in Arabic, dila' means rib, but dila' also means the side or the hind portion. So it's not just the rib, but it's the flesh. It's like the rib cage. Now, those who espouse the position that Hawa alayhi salam was created from the rib of Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam will say, how do you contend with the hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, be goodly to the woman because she was created from the curved rib. But iwaj also means crooked. If you try to straighten the rib, you break it. If you leave the rib curved as it is, You benefit from it. Their response is, how do you contend with this hadith? The vast majority, the preponderant position is, number one, that hadith is a parable. Because obviously we know that a woman in real life does not resemble a human rib. Because if you've looked at an anatomy class or in a book like Gray's Anatomy, the most definitive book on anatomy, the human rib does not resemble a human being. The human rib is a part of a human being. This is the first thing. Secondly, the word dila in Arabic can also mean janba, which is side. Which is precisely what the vast majority has been saying. That Hawa and Adam alayhi salam were created together. Now, this doesn't mean, now Nabiyyuna Adam alayhi salam was the first of the human species. But it wasn't just a rib. Hawa alayhi salam was created a side of him. And was given, not a rib, but a side. Because if we say, the preponderant position, they say, if you say that it was a rib, you can look at the anatomy of the human being and see there's no ribs missing. Because the whole point is, if you say they're created from a rib from the human being, okay, is anyone missing any ribs of all the human beings that we have down through the ages? No. Man and woman have the same amount of ribs. Now, there may be some difference. Sometimes there's a case of what's known as the floating rib, but that's a different discussion. But generally, human beings, male and female, have the same amount of ribs. Just like the same thing with dentition. We have the same dentition. So there's not going to be any difference. So the man and the woman are not coming from, well, there was a rib. Because part of the discussion is, it goes back to the dispute between Muslims and Jews and Christians. Because Jews and Christians will say, well, yes, Adam had a rib taken out of him. Some flesh was caused to grow out of it. And then Hawa alayhi salam was made and he was told to go to sleep. So when he woke up from a long sleep, he saw he has a spouse now. But when you read the ayah, O humanity, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum, O humanity, min nafsin wahida, who created you from one soul, wa khalaqa minha zawjaha, and created from it its mate. Right? And then the ayah goes forward. There's nothing in there of any time period, such as thumma, which would suggest a time period. There's nothing mentioned in any there about a time period there. So the great bulk of scholars understand that it wasn't a situation where just one rib was slotted out of the jukebox, and flesh was formed around it, and Nabiyyuna Adam alayhi salam had to go to sleep for 40 years, and life is good. No, they were created around that same time. True enough, Nabiyyuna Adam alayhi salam, the first human being made first, but not long after, Hawa alayhi salam made from there. Right, so this is what the dispute is. Now, the Imam goes further by saying, quote, and you had spouses created for you from yourselves so that you might live with them. Meaning, so that you might cleave to your spouses in marriage. And he made between you love and mercy, because the married couple express love and mercy among themselves. And in that, meaning that which was mentioned from his creation, are signs for those who reflect on the power and might of Allah. Here Allah also mentions the differing of your languages. For example, Arabic and non-Arabic. As well as your colors and complexions. Because the creation is somewhere between either dark, pale, or red. And they are the children of one man and one woman. Now, it's been said that the intent of the differing languages is the different voices and tones of voice as well. Because people have different tones of voice. And they inherit qualities from the father and the mother. And they resemble them. The intent of the different colors are the different shapes and forms. So everyone appears differently. and that are signs for those who know. Now, Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Abu Amr, Ibn Amr, Hamza, and Al-Kasa'i, as well as Abu Bakr ibn Asim, make the statement and say, لِلْعَالَمِينَ. However, Hafs from Asim recites as لِلْعَالِمِينَ. From his signs is your sleep in the night, meaning the sleep that you need to take to rest after the day you had exhausted yourself. And you're seeking in the daytime, seeking your wealth and your sustenance. And that are signs for those who hear, meaning they've been given the ability to hear, and then they can reflect thereafter. From his signs is he shows you the lightning, and it brings fear and hope. And then Allah also mentions the establishment of all other things. Now, we've already described the meaning of much of this in Surah Al-Ra'd, ayat 12. For further details, someone can refer back to this. The Exalted One then says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَن تَقُومَ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ بِأَمْرِهِ ثُمَّ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ دَعْوَةً مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ تَخْرُجُونَ وَلَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلٌّ لَهُ قَانِتُونَ وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ وَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَهُ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ ضرب لكم مثلا من أنفسكم هل لكم مما ملكت أيمانكم من شركاء فيما رزقناكم فأنتم فيه سواء تخافونهم كخيفتكم أنفسكم كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعقلون بل اتبع الذين ظلموا أهواءهم بغير علم فمن يهدي من أضل الله وما لهم من ناصرين فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون منيبين إليه واتقوه وأقيموا الصلاة ولا تكونوا من المشركين من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. From his signs are that he established the sky and the earth by his command. Then when he called you with a call from the earth, when this occurs, you shall certainly come forward. He has possession of what's in the skies and the earth. All come to him in a state of submission and devotion. He is the one who began the creation, then he shall begin it again. It is little or nothing to him. He has the highest level of likeness in the skies and the earth. He is the Almighty, the All-Wise. He gave the likeness to you regarding yourselves. Don't you have servants? And if you had servants from yourselves that had partners in what you were sustained, is it then the case that you would have equals and you would fear them, just like your fear of yourselves? Would you associate partners and expect that your servants would obey two masters? Likewise, we make the signs clear for those who use their intellects. But those who oppress themselves follow their desires without knowledge. Who can guide the one who Allah has led astray? And who can possibly have help? So establish your face firmly on the true faith. Allah has ordained the true faith for the people to be upon. There's no replacing to the creation of Allah. That is the upright faith, but most people don't know. Be faithful to Him, fear Him, establish the prayer, and do not be from the idol worshippers. Whoever, from those who split up their faith, and they are parties and sects, each group glorying in and rejoicing in what it has. Surah Ar-Rum, the 30th Surah, ayat 25 to 32. The Exalted One mentions that He established the sky and the earth, meaning that they are long-standing. Now, when you shall be called, this is in the past tense. إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ دَعْوَةً. Now, although it's in the past tense, it is referring to future events. The calling of the people refers to the blowing into the horn of the angel Israfil, the second blowing, which is by the command of Allah. And you shall come forward from your graves, rushing. Now, we've already discussed some of this in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayah 116, and Surah Al-Ankabut, the 29th surah, ayah 19. And then he says to bring about people from their graves to the new creation. هُوَ أَهْوَنُ عَلَيْهِ. It is little or nothing or weak to him. It is nothing to him. This is referring to four things. Meaning, number one, resurrecting people is actually less in difficulty than bringing about the first creation. So if He brought about the first creation, which is surely more complex and more difficult, then how could it be seemingly impossible or difficult to bring back what He had created in the first place? And this was mentioned to us by Mujahid Abu Aliya. The second thing that this expression refers to is Allah is grand enough and great enough to bring back something such as this when He's the one that possesses it in the first place. This was also said by Abu Ubaidah, Al-Hasan al-Basri, Qatada, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Abu Imran al-Juni, and Ja'far ibn Muhammad, also known as Ja'far al-Sadiq. The third thing is He is speaking to the slaves according to their understanding that they have. So He's showing them that if they think that the resurrection is difficult, the beginning is actually to bring about the creation is more difficult. So resurrection should actually be easier and thus more possible to believe in their minds, because He's bringing the same thing back after it had died in resurrection. So here Allah is teaching them and showing them how to think. This was mentioned by Al-Farra, Al-Mubarrid, Al-Zajjaj, Muqatil. The fourth is that He created the human being in different stages, and He shall bring them back in one stage, which is resurrection, which is easier than the different stages the human being went through. Starting off with the sperm drop, then the leech-like clot, then the chewed lump of flesh, and then even way before that, when he was the clay or dirt, that's actually easier to bring him back all at once. And he has al-Mathalul A'la. All scholars of commentary say this means he has the highest attribute, the most noble attribute. Meaning that everyone knows that there's no God other than him. Then he said he gives you the likeness. Now the reason why this ayah was revealed, ضَرَبَ لَكُمْ مَثَلًا, he gives you the likeness, is because the people of the Jahiliyyah used to say in their talbiyah, لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك إلا شريكا هو لك. I am here at your service, Allah. There's no partner except the partner which has been ordained for you and what has been decreed. This ayah was sent down to refute this false assertion that was inserted into the talbiyah. This was said by Sa'id ibn Jubayr and Muqatil. The meaning of the ayah is, it's been made clear to you, O idol worshippers, the falsehood that's been given from yourselves. So look at your own slaves, your own wealth, and your own slaves. If you had to share your slaves and your wealth with someone else, wouldn't that be a partner for you, and would you accept that? Well then likewise, He, Allah, in which all of you are slaves, is not going to share in His dominion with anyone else. So just as you fear for you what your slaves may do and the tribulations that may happen, then likewise you should have fear of Allah, because He shall bring you back when you had not been. He shall bring you back after you had died. Is any one of you happy that he has a slave as his partner in wealth or his family until he becomes equal in disposing and he fears that he might unseat him from power? Surely someone would not accept this. Well, all the rest of humanity are slaves in the sight of Allah, and He does not accept any likeness in His dominion. Likewise, we make clear to you the signs, so that the people might use their intellect. Meaning, He, Allah, has made clear to you so that you might not follow your desires. But those who oppress themselves associate partners with Allah and follow their desires without knowledge. And how is it that He can be guided whoever Allah has caused to go astray? This ayah is a proof that the idol worshippers only associate partners as Allah has led them astray, and there is no one that can help them. There's no one that can protect them or hinder them from the punishment of Allah. Establish your whole self on the upright faith, meaning your deen of Islam, meaning the Tawheed. Abu Sulaiman al-Damashqi has said, so be upright in your faith in the way that Allah has ordained you to be upright. Purify your deeds and let every righteous action be true. And when you establish your faith, establish it with clear signs and perfection. And be Hanifa. Hanif is inclining towards the perfection in something or the utmost of something, to push out all impurities from that thing. Fitrat Allah, the fitra, this is the fitra of Allah. So here Allah is telling you, follow the fitra of Allah. Follow the true deen, وَاتَّبِعْ فِتْرَةَ Allah, and the fitra of Allah, which is the deen of Allah. And the fitra is the natural order which He, Allah, created the human being upon. Just like the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every child is born on the fitrah. And this is collected by Imam Bukhari. Every child is born on the fitrah, and this ayah signifies every child is born on Iman in Allah, believing in Allah. Mujahid has said, His commentary, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. So, follow the fitrah of Allah, which He ordained the people upon it, meaning al-Islam. And Qatada has said the same thing. Az-Zajjaj and others, such as Dhahab, such as Ibn Qutaybah, have also clarified the matter by saying the difference between ourselves and between those who are called the Qadariyah is in this hadith. The fitrah to them is Islam. The fitrah to us is affirmation of Allah, knowing Him, and not Islam alone. The meaning of the fitrah here is the beginning of the creation, the beginning of the thing. And the totality was the affirmation when it was said, Alastu bi rabbikum? Qalu bala. Am I not your Lord? They said, indeed. Surah Araf, the 7th surah, ayah 172. So, you will not find anyone except that he affirms that he has a creator and a sustainer and designer. Even if he worships something besides Him and names it with other than His name. The meaning of the hadith, everyone is born on the fitrah. It means every child born in the creation is born on that covenant, which is the first affirmation. This is the fitrah. Then the Jews make the child Jewish, or they teach that to them. The first affirmation is not of that which occurs a judgment nor reward. This has already been mentioned by Abu Bakr al-Athram. Now, some people have sought to use evidence that the people have agreed that this shows that the Muslim does not inherit from the unbeliever, nor the unbeliever from the Muslim. They made consensus on that the Jewish person, when he dies and he has a small child, he inherits from him. Likewise, the same thing with the Christian or the fire worshipper. But if the meaning of the fitrah was Islam, no one should inherit except for the Muslims. No one should be buried with them except a Muslim. So the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, every child is born on the fitrah, meaning that very beginning in which they affirmed his oneness in the beginning, when he was taken from the back of Adam. Some denied, even after they had affirmed. And this can be established in other reports. This hadith is similar to the hadith of Iyad ibn Himar from the Prophet ﷺ, who said, Allah the Exalted has said, I have created my slaves as hunafa, faithful. This is collected by my Muslim. Now, that is that he didn't leave them and abandon them when he took the covenant from them, except that they had indicators. And they answered him, and they went into their categories. Now, there is no replacing the creation of Allah. So you cannot replace the creation of Allah, meaning whatever the beasts resemble and have can't be changed. They have their resemblance and their kinds, as said by Umar ibn al-Khattab. The second is the deen of Allah, as mentioned by Mujahid, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Qatada, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, and others in Ibn Abbas and Ikrimah. That is the upright deen, meaning Tawheed, the upright faith. But most people, meaning the idol worshippers and unbelievers of Mecca, they do not know the Tawheed of Allah. Be faithful to Him. So establish your faces towards Him, because here the Prophet ﷺ is being spoken to by Allah, but He's also entered His whole ummah with them. So He is addressing the entire ummah through him, And the meaning here is all the commands of Allah, acknowledge them and accept them. Do not go against the command of Allah. Now, we've already discussed the commands of Allah and what's been given in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd Surah, Ayah 3, Surah Al-An'am, the 6th Surah, Ayah 159, up until the statement, and when some difficulty touches man, he calls on his Lord sincerely to him. Then when it's been lifted from him, that mercy he forgets. So this means that people, when they're in a state of ease, they're heedless, and then they remember when they're in a state of hardship. And this is a tribulation for among them. Here, he, the Exalted One, mentions all the affairs that we should understand. And we reflect on the affair that's been given. Close quote. Now, here, what we've got is a very clear distinction between ourselves, Muslim Orthodoxy, and the cults, which are the Qadariyah. The Qadariyah understanding that the Imam gave is that when the Qadariyah read these ayat and others, this is when it says, Kullu mawludin yulad al-fitra, every child is born on the fitrah. They understand, oh, that means Islam. Now, when they understand Islam, they say, well, everyone is born on Islam. And so they make the decision to be Muslim because that's the condition that they're born on. So if someone just states that they are Muslim, that's enough. The position of the Qadariyah is, if someone states that they are Muslim, that's enough. Muslim Orthodoxy said, no, this hadith and the other ayat that go with it are connected with the original covenant that Allah made, which is Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th Surah, 172. Am I not your Lord? They said, indeed you are. So the original covenant that was taken from everyone of Allah's oneness, and that there is no God besides Him, that was taken. Now, some people after that point later on denied. So the covenant was taken, everyone was there, and it was denied. What does that set up? That means that there is a basis, an original basis that's set up, in which those who are saved in eternity, Allah knew who they were and predetermined them. If those who are saved are predetermined and known who's going to be saved and who's not, that means Allah and the person who will believe or disbelieve, they're the two who know internally. Someone knows whether they're ever going to believe or not. They know. And He, Allah, knows. So there's no change. Right after that, Allah says, "La tabdila li khalqillah." There's no change in the creation of Allah. And this is where the scholars get the understanding that, now they say this and people say, that doesn't seem fair. No, listen to that ayah, listen to the hadith. Imam Abu Ja'far Tahawi, and people have to swallow it because it's bitter on their little tongues. The number of those who belong to the fire and those who belong to the paradise is fixed. It's fixed. And does not change. Oh, well, where's the evidence for that? You're looking at it. You're looking at it. Well, how do you balance that with the hadith, I've created all my slaves as hunafa? That's talking about the covenant. Everyone that had the covenant, Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? Qalu bala. They said, indeed, that's the mithaq, that's the covenant. Now, when we then came down here, from the realm of the unseen, some of us rejected, some of us didn't. Now, then the day of resurrection comes. What happens? Everyone believes again. La tabdila li khalqillah. For the Qadariyah, nothing has been written. Have you heard this before? You make your own decisions in life. This whole thing depends on you. That's why we talk about my iman, my Islam, my Allah. Because it's yours. Because you're the big shot. No. Muslim orthodoxy says what Imam Ahmad was tortured for, scholars had their heads cut off, was the entire theology of Muslim orthodoxy. And this is one of the issues. It was the speech of Allah and the basis of salvation. This is what broke the back of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari. He asked al-Jubai 3 things. And al-Jubai fell apart. He stated the correct Mu'tazila theology. When he heard it, Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari first, when he finally saw it in full relief, he rejected it. Because now he finally understood salvation. He's 40 years old and he finally understood the basis of salvation. You still got Muslims running around here trying to be 51% good. Here's what it was. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Jubai, the great Mu'tazila overlord. He's sitting with Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari, who was Ali ibn al-Hussein. He says to him, I have a question for you. You have 3 people. You have an infant that dies before he reaches the age of distinction. What's his ultimate place? Well, the paradise. So he goes to the paradise. Very well. He says, then there's another man who he dies having committed no major sins, and he goes to the paradise. Then you have a third man who does major sin and other things and dies. What do we say about these different people? Al-Jubai says, well, the first one, the infant that died, that was better for him that he died. So that way he couldn't grow up and commit any sins. That's the Mu'tazila theology. Do you know that there's some slaves of Allah from the Sunnis who use the same thing? Why do little children die in the world and everything else? Well, because it's better for them. Is it? Well, we should go and kill all kids. Starting with our own. It was better for him. So that way he doesn't grow up and commit any sins. What about the second man? He dies, did righteous deeds, everything else. Al-Jubai said, well, he dies, he goes to the paradise. Because that's better for him and that's what he deserves because he did the good deeds. Okay, what about the man that commits the major sin? Well, he dies and goes to the fire for all eternity. Why? Well, because he committed a major sin, he goes to the fire. Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari says, was that better for him? Was that better for him? Al-Jubai's response is, of course it was. That's what he deserves. That's what he gets. And that's when Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari understood that the basis of deeds-based salvation is what's better, what you think is good for you. And the Mu'tazila are Qadariyya in their theology. And that's when he finally understood it and when he could reject it. Because now he was able to put the pieces together. Well, you do your good deeds, you do your stuff, you get the paradise. Why? Because that's what you deserve. Mu'tazila understanding is if you do a good deed, Allah is duty bound to accept it. And because you gave him your good deed, he's got to accept it. I did my good deeds. Look at what I did. Completely ignoring وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا, and he, Allah, isn't bound to accept anything or any observation. He's not bound to accept any type of ultimatums because I was a good person. You remember Nawawi said once when there were some cultists around him, he said Allah could take all the laity of the human race and put them in the fire and everything else, and that would be befitting from him as is his justice, but he keeps his word. And those that he has given faith and he's put iman, then he puts them in the paradise by his mercy. He said, but if he puts you all in the fire, that's his justice, because that's what you deserve. And he quoted a series of ayat, and they couldn't do anything. The basis of the difference between Muslim Orthodoxy and the Qadariyya is what's interesting is the Qadariyya understanding is the understanding of some of the laity in the Anglosphere, which is, I'm a good person. I do my prayers, I do this, I do that, and Allah accepts those, and based on that, I go into paradise, I get my ticket, number 242, I put it in the gate, the meter reads it, or I put my thumb on the paradise door, gates open up, I slide right up in there. That's Qadariyah theology. That you somehow deserve the paradise because you're going to give Allah something He's created. So you're going to take something that Allah has created, i.e. deeds, and you're going to use the basis of deeds to then barter with a holy God to give you the paradise for all eternity from something that He's given you, that He's created, that's His property, that then enter into His property? Are you insane? You know how crazy that sounds? Just the same thing as some people say, well, intercession from one cult, the Khawarij, known as Salafiyah, one cult that says, well, intercession is impermissible, it's major shirk and major kufr, but you can do intercession with your deeds. Well, you've fallen back into major shirk again, which is major shirk you say we've fallen into. Well, you can't beseech Allah through the creation. We say, well, then how can we do it? Well, through our deeds. Well, that's major shirk as well again. Oh, Allah, I did this one good deed. If you please answer this prayer for me. But that's a created thing. Listen. There is no way to please a holy and righteous God, as He said time and time again. La taziru waziratun wizra ukhra. No one can bear the burden of another one's sin. There's no way you can please a holy, righteous God with something that He gave you that's His property and then try to sell it back to Him for the lowest bid possible. This is not the grocery store. You're not going to do it. And this is what Imam Ahmed and everyone else went to jail for. The Mu'tazila and all other cults, every single cult has at its basis deeds-based salvation. And that's what this is about. They all misread this hadith. Oh, everyone's born on the fitrah. So if everyone's born on the fitrah, well, I mean, as long as I say I'm Muslim, I'm Muslim. No. Islam is what Allah said it is. Islam is what Allah said it is. Because everyone's born on the fitrah doesn't mean that everyone responded to the call after the covenant. There were some people who heard the call, they responded. After they left from there to here, they then rejected faith. What happens on the day of resurrection? Everyone's like, okay, because the veil's taken away and they believe again. So much so that in Surah Al-An'am, we used to laugh about it until our teacher explained this to the calamity of it. Wallahi Rabbina ma kunna mushrikeen. Our Lord, we never used to worship idols. Unbelievers, idol worshippers who in this life are looking at the fire on the day of resurrection, they swear by Allah and they lie to Him because they're terrified, because they don't want to go in the fire. Wallahi, we never used to worship idols. We used to laugh about that ayah. He said, that's not something that you laugh about. Do you understand the context of this ayah? And he spent half an hour and broke that down to us, that people will be so terrified when they realize what's happened and how they've been led astray and they denied the original covenant that they made. On the day of resurrection, they'll swear by Allah and they'll lie and they'll say that they never worship idols. This is the basis of salvation. That's why Imam Ahmed went to court. That's why he suffered. That's why all these ulama got killed. That's why they got their heads cut off. That is the basis of salvation, which we're being told yet again. So we walk back through this. You can't enter the paradise with something somebody else did for you, because what they have is going to be created as well, because it's His property. You can't enter the paradise because of something that you did, because you don't have anything that you can give, because you're butt naked, because you're a creation. And you can't enter the paradise based upon some sacrifice or something such as this, because He's already told you in Surah Al-Hajj, the 22nd Surah, ayat 37, that the blood and the flesh do not reach Him. Forget about it. So the basis is, we go back to it, where we go to Surah Ghafir, the 40th Surah, ayat 41. O my people, I call you to salvation. I'll mention this very quickly. أدعوكم إلى النجاة وتدعونني إلى النار. I call you to salvation, and you call me to the fire. Najah in Arabic Najat means salvation, but linguistically it means to be saved from drowning. Do you ever notice how in the Quran, how many times the story of Nabiyyuna Nuh alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran? The drowning. Why it's important to hold the doctrine that the flood was global. Because it's a run-up. It's a symbolism. It happened, but it's also known as symbolism. Where an event is used as a sign and symbol to tell a story and teach a lesson about another event. Which is what? You take the story of the flood, Najat, means to save someone who's drowning. Save someone who's drowning, who is about to drown, and pull them out of the water. The word used for how Nabiyyuna Nuh alayhi salam and those who believed in him was saved was what? The same word that's used for salvation. The exact same one. Now, who survived? Nabiyyuna Nuh alayhi salam's wife, his children, and their kids, which is a small number. What's the fate of the vast majority of human beings, humankind? Well, the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith in the collection of Imam al-Suyuti that out of 999, one comes out. Get the picture? Out of 1,000, one comes out. Out of 1,000, one comes out. The rest are condemned. Let's look at another word for salvation. Inqadh. Inqadh is something that's been thrown in the fire that gets burned. You pull it out while it's on fire and you blow it out. That's inqadh. That's mentioned in Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd Surah, 102 to 103. فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ, you were on the very pit of the fire. فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ مِنْهَا, and he saved you from it. Blown out. Fawz, in Arabic, fawz makes reference to when someone is going to fail and they are saved and allowed to succeed. That happens throughout Juz Amma. I keep saying, all these things happened in history. Nabiyyuna Ibrahim alayhi salam was given najah from the fire, was given inqadh from the fire. All these types of words that are being used, they are signs and symbols for what salvation is. The vast majority of the human race is not going to make it. Salvation is by faith alone. How did Nabiyyuna Nuh alayhi salam get saved? By his own self? No. Allah told him, listen, this is how I'm going to save you. I'm going to do it. When the children of Israel were fleeing from Pharaoh and the Pharaoh was drowned, same word najah being used. How were they saved? By Allah sending a prophet by Allah's means, how he said, I'm going to do the salvation. You don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Over and over and over again, Allah is showing you that I am the one that takes care of things. So the testimony of faith, someone believes in that, Allah enters Iman into their heart. But how does that come about? It is Allah that enlivens the heart and causes that person to be able to hear. A person laying dead on the medical counter cannot take the paddles and say clear and reanimate himself. The spiritually dead, only Allah can enliven the spiritually dead. For every other cult, it's do it yourself. It's do it yourself. Take the pie out of the oven and you do it yourself. Muslim orthodoxy is He, Allah, is in charge of everything. He gives us salvation. And the only people that can respond are those who He, Allah, saved. And so the basis of why you enter the paradise, all different types of people enter the paradise. But the destination is the same. Some may enter with more, some may enter with less. The basis of salvation is the testimony of faith, which is through Allah's mercy and His pardon. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, no one of you will enter the paradise with his deeds. Sahih Muslim. A companion said, not even you, Messenger of Allah? He said, not even I. Until Allah grants the mercy. What sins did the Prophet ﷺ do? None. But who deserves paradise? Nobody. You need to understand this. You need to understand this. The basis of salvation is faith alone, in Allah alone. And it's from His mercy and His pardon and His grace and His favor. You try to be that 51% good Muslim and try to offer up your deeds on a plate and see what you get. Because we have plenty of people doing that, blowing themselves up and jumping on planes and ramming into buildings and everything else. Don't they know that the mujahid in the hadith in Al-Bukhari that they haven't even heard or even seen? That mujahideen being held back from entering the paradise because they owe a debt to someone? And people are thinking that if I just do this one action, I'll get in and I'll be perfectly fine. And they don't even realize that mujahideen who die on the battlefield and they intentionally leave behind a debt are held back from entering the paradise. People are counting on that as their get into paradise free ticket. No. The testimony of faith. Faith alone. In Allah alone. Only He can do it. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم الحمد الرحيمين. So I apologize for going on a little bit. I'll stop it here, but I apologize for going on a bit. But Imam Al-Jawzi made this point very, very particular. And he really harped on it. Because his time, you had a proliferation of the Qadiriyah, one of the cults rising up again. But this time they were under the view of the Batiniyah, which was another cult in that time, rising up. And now we have the same thing. If you're just a good guy, if you're a good person, as long as you say that you're a Muslim, you don't got to believe that junk. As long as you say you're a Muslim, then that's enough. Who are you to tell Allah about His deen? Who are you to tell Allah about His deen? Do you know best or does Allah know best? Do you know best? أَأَنْتُمْ أَعْلَمُ عَمِ اللَّهِ? Who knows best? Is it you or Allah? And this is the important part. The basis of salvation is absolutely crucial to understand. Because every cult gets it wrong. Whether we're talking Ahmadi, Salafi, doesn't matter. They all get it wrong. And they all think that the deeds are to do with you going into paradise. When in actuality, someone that believes the testimony of faith, that Allah has saved them, Allah has given them salvation, wants to do deeds to obey Allah because they want to show how grateful they are. And how much they appreciate and how much they thank Him and how much they praise Him and how much they glorify Him because they've been saved from certain destruction. They want to thank Him. They want to praise Him. What had the children of Israel when Allah saved them? What had they done for Allah that they deserved to be saved from destruction? What had they done? Nothing. What right did they have to be saved from the flood that was coming that killed the Pharaoh and his? What right did they have to be saved? Nothing. What did the children of Nabiyyina Nuh alayhi salam have that gave them a right to be saved from a flood that was global and destructive? This is why the position of the global flood is important, because it touches on redemption. What did you do that was so great that you deserved it? Nothing. That's the whole point of it. If it was left to you, you'd screw it up. You screw up every other thing in life when you have problems. What makes you think you wouldn't screw this up? We're late for appointments. We say we're going to be there on. And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just talking about the human condition. I'm going to be there by 5:30. We'll try like a Dickens to get there. Still screw up. Still screw up. What makes you think you're going to be hot shots in salvation? Let me give you Allah my salah. No. Next time you pray, you understand you deserve judgment, but Allah the Exalted, He protected you, He saved you, He gave you salvation. That will change your whole idea about salah. Lord, thank you. Thank you for giving me that salvation. Thank you for this. I'll do as much as I can. That's a totally different attitude. If you have an attitude where it's in the bag because of something you did, you're like, well, allow me to offer my prayer. Bring in the dancing girls. Because I'm behind this. Let us erect a statue in the local city center to you. Allow us to polish your throne and celebrate you. Any questions over what we've covered so far today? Bit somber, but nonetheless, I hope inspirational. Questions? Yes.
You spoke about the first of the human creation being Adam alayhi salam. I was asking, what was the first
question is going to be about the question is regarding the first creation of Allah. Which was the first creation of Allah? Alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. There's a difference of opinion about this, which is based around Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd Surah 81, and Surah Al-Ahzab, the 33rd Surah 7, as well as the hadith in Tirmidhi where the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm the first of the creation sent, أنا أول الأنبياء في الخلق. I am the first of the prophets created and the last one sent. Some scholars, Maturidis and some Ash'aris, say this means that the Prophet ﷺ was the first creation. It means he was the very first creation of Allah. Other scholars say it means he was the first of the human race. But Nabiuna Adam alayhi salam was the first human being to have a body. But the Prophet ﷺ predated him in creation. We know that because he said, I was created I was the seal of the prophets when Adam's clay was still kneaded and wet. Right? So, those who say he was the first creation at all, read the same evidences, but understand the firstness to be absolute. Those who say he was the first created, meaning of the human species, understand that the first awwal means his genus, his species. That's a branch issue in theology. The fact that we know that he's the greatest prophet, the best creation that Allah ever made, that's enough. Those are particulars. Those are particulars.
Is there a hadith regarding water being the first thing created?
Question is regarding water being created, water being the first thing created. There is a hadith in which, in Al-Bakri, where the Prophet ﷺ said that he, Allah, created the pen, and he was above his throne, and there was water. Right? This would mean that water had been created before the pen, which indicates that the word first has more than one meaning. So I've not ran across anyone who said the water was the first creation, but if they were using the word awwal in the sense of firstness, it depends, because there's many different discussions about the word awwal, whether he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the pen, or other things. So there's different ways in which people interpret the context of the word awwal. Yeah? Is another question? No? So, if there is no question, is anyone sure there's no question? No question? Question? Okay, so inshallah we'll stop here. We'll start inshallah next week. And we have the rest of the next page. And if Allah blesses us, we will most likely be completing this surah. And probably going into Surah Luqman, the 31st surah. So we say, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك انه غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين ولا اله الا الله والسلام عليكم.